Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast, the football podcast we bring you each and every week on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Also, if you prefer audio versions of our shows, you can pick them up there on Podbean, Spotify, also available on Anchor. And joining me today for a special episode from Irish Football Fan TV, Mr. Gerard Browne. Gerard, how you doing, my man?
Not too bad, Niall, and yourself? All
Absolutely
good now?
perfect. Yeah, not too bad at all in these trying times, of course. But sure, we podcasting keeps us going. That's the main thing. Um, yeah, great to have you on. So, I suppose we should start with Irish Football Fan TV. Tell us a little bit about that. If there's a viewer out there or a listener who isn't familiar with Irish Football Fan TV.
Yeah, I hope I do a good service here because I've only joined and started working with the channel, I suppose, about 15 months this stage since January of last year. But no, it's been up and running now. I think it's approaching its fourth anniversary. April 2017 was when it was started up. Paul Needham, the head man, he started up back then. I suppose it was just kind of, we've seen the big success of fan TV channels in England, like obviously with, Redmen TV, Anfield Wrap from a Liverpool point of view. Obviously, everyone thinks of Arsenal fan TV, but every kind of big Premier League club seems to have them. So we were kind of lacking, I suppose, something like that in Ireland. There was a gap, there was a niche need in America, and I suppose Paul exploited that and kind of started to take on that as well. It was nice as well. It was another exposure and kind of outlet there for the League of Ireland, maybe try and help put faces to a lot of these players' names that people might only just hear of and see from radio podcasts or radio interviews podcasts. So it was nice to kind of put a name some the people were seeing faces from matches and stuff like that, and just kind of to broadly kind of cover Irish football from that kind of fan kind of point of view, from that kind of like your average punter who goes to games, who sits in the stands with that kind of raw emotion, that raw passion. And it's taken off and it's been going very, very well. It continues to grow from leap to leap. While results might have not been the best over the last international break, it was very, very good for the channel. We got some great content there, obviously with the matches, getting opposition previews with equivalent of channels from Serbia and from Luxembourg, and we had Gary Spain over the matches in Belgrade, and obviously he went over to the Hungary friendly or the friendly in Hungary against Qatar. Paul obviously covers all the home matches as well, so it's been fantastic from that kind of point of view. We're getting I heard you saying in your intro there, smash that subscription button. We're very, very close to hitting the big milestone ourselves, 10,000. So we really need people to start smashing that as well. It would be great and would be fantastic. And obviously as well, we covered the domestic matches here. We have people going out and about at games and stuff like that. I was at Daymount Park for Bowls and Pats last weekend. I'm going to be in Bishopsgate this Saturday for Longford and Drogheda. Paul Elber and Dundalk last week. I think we're going to have someone at Pats and Derry tomorrow. So we literally just try and, even Gary Spain was at the women's game this evening against Denmark. So we try and cover absolutely everything.
Yeah, I said going in and looking at the channel and all your socials and stuff like that. It's a fantastic media source for those people interested in Irish football in general, be it players, the national team, women's, everything. Like even the local leagues and League of Ireland and stuff like that, and all. The content is absolutely fabulous. Really, really enjoyable. In terms of, I mean, obviously getting that FAI media accredited was a huge step for the channel, I would imagine, because it gives you that in really to have that sort of that hook up with players and those interviews and all that kind of stuff, which people really, really enjoy. How did that all come about?
Yeah, I think it kind of really shows that you're being recognized and you're stand up and people are taking notice of you and they kind of appreciate you, and it gives you kind of that respect. You're now on an even par, I suppose, with your more traditional established media outlets, the likes of maybe your Off the Balls, RTEs, and independents, and maybe Examiners and Times from a print media point of view. I'm not again 100% sure because this all came about, I suppose, just before I joined. But to the best of my knowledge, Paul has been covering matches since the start of, give or take, I think in around Mick McCarthy came back in. So say qualifying for Euro 2020, he's obviously been at covering matches at the Aviva from that, and it's great, like you say, like it gives you access to chat to players afterwards. Obviously it's something that we miss now with COVID, but it was fantastic, like for someone like me who was an onlooker maybe before I joined the channel, to see Paul getting into with all the players after matches was brilliant. And like it gives you fantastic access because you, as things are now and as things were before then, you get into the pre-match and post-match presses, which is absolutely fantastic as well. We're in a great situation as well where Gary Spain has been you know, I suppose in many respects, it's probably been brave enough that he's willing and kind of to take the 14-day quarantine when he comes home to get over and cover matches as well. It's absolutely fantastic to kind of to be the rare Irish outlet and this day and age with everything with COVID to cover away matches. So it is absolutely fantastic. Like, you know, when there's, say again, pre-COVID days when there was launches, I remember Mick McCarthy, when he was still manager, was doing a launch, I think somewhere in Dublin City Centre. You get invites to all this. I remember I went up with Paul one day as well when they were doing kind of the National Museum, doing the tour around Ireland, the different towns. We're up in Dundalk one evening as well. And it was great. And it was fantastic to see the likes of Stephen Kenny was there, Ray Houghton, Steve Staunton, Niall Quinn. It was fantastic just to be in the presence of people. And it's great and it's brilliant that you're now given the same access as a touchdown with other established media outlets.
I suppose it's an appreciation of the hard work that has gone before it by you guys. You know what I mean? That like you know, you've put in the hard work and the grind previous to this, and now they recognize that you guys are all in with this. So they bring you that next step over. You know what I mean? Which is absolutely fantastic, especially for your channel and your socials. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah. Go ahead.
sorry, I was just going to, as you touched on there earlier about like the socials, I think that's what kind of people have realized. We have that fantastic following on social media. We're well over 30,000 on Instagram, which, you know, is not, it's not easy to get kind of followers and get people to continuously stick with you on Instagram and stuff like that, and to buy in to kind of give even that like button. I'm not 100% sure or Twitter, but like you just have to look at that and like the reception we get on that, and like the little snippets of plug-in and, you know, little the IGTV clips and all that you can pull out, and the attractions they kind of get. And it's fantastic to see that, like, in many ways we're part of this kind of new kind of media moving forward, and it's fantastic to see that we're being recognized and we're being brought forward, and because of that recognition we can now help take ourselves to the next couple of steps.
Yeah, well, I think looking at the content that you put out as well, you must be, in my mind, that I can recollect anyway, the only media source that covers the whole broad spectrum of the Irish scene. Um, you know, you even see articles going in there where there's, Joe McCarthy, who was playing in some spurious team in the Welsh League or something like that, and you're still on the ball and you still have the news even on those guys. You know what I mean? It's fantastic to see that you're putting in that kind of effort and that amount of coverage on the Irish scene in totality, be it leagues, international, women's, whatever it is, it's fantastic. Like, and I know from podcasting myself, it's hard work as well. It's full on, like when you're putting this kind of stuff together, So, fair play to you.
Yeah, I think like even as you were touching on there, like the small little things, like, but again, it's trying to catch that gap in the market and that kind of niche, and maybe catch on something that like other outlets mightn't look at or touch, and that can kind of give you your kind of like give you a bit more of a target audience and kind of get a promotion out there, and it kind of attract good attention for yourself. And as you say, like, it is hard yards. Like, it's 4 years up and running, and to be where we are, we're very, very happy. But you're never sit back and be satisfied, because the day you do that, it's the day you kind of stop trying to improve yourself, and your day you get too far ahead yourself, and you probably end up going downhill slope. So, like, yeah, while we're happy and everything else like that, there's no two ways about it. Like, if we were to have this chat again in 4 years' time, or even 2 or 3 years' time, I want to be talking about, pushing for 30, 40,000 subscribers, maybe even 50,000. Why not aim that big? And, and even our Instagram and stuff like that is taking off. So it's just to constantly kind of keep going. We've, like I said, we even feel by getting like the opposition previews, we've now kind of like even just, thinking of other more ideas. And like, we've got Matt Holland on as well for the Serbia match. It's constantly trying to kind of keep up with that kind of content and drive that and keep that going, for especially when the next set of qualifiers come back around in September.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's touch on before we get into the actual team itself and the recent fixtures and stuff like that. Let's touch on Stephen Kenny. What you're thinking there at the moment? Obviously, I think he gets an awful hard time. I think he's come into a baptism of fire, and it's a team in transition. There's a lot of players starting to move. A lot of players have moved out. A lot of players probably still need to move out somewhat. And he's trying to implement a kind of a style of play, which is encouraging. But whether he has the quality within that player base to implement that style of play, what you thinking on Stephen so far?
Yeah, I think in one way of kind of describing it, you can almost say Stephen just happens to be the wrong man in the wrong job at the wrong time. That, like, I don't think it matters who was there right now, they'd be facing the exact same problem. Like, the current situation and the current results and plight that the senior team finds them in goes deeper than Stephen Kenny. I've known from reading Champagne football. We all know from following the John Delaney case. But I think like a lot of us, and it gets flagged up in the book as well, there was a lot of people that were aware of what was going on in the FAI, but obviously because the powers that be that John Delaney have, it never really seen the light of day and never really got the exposure that it should have. And it's all catching up with us now. Like even silly little, small little things like Noel King was under 21 manager for years, and we never came within an ass's roar qualifying for the under 21 tournament. I look at England, a far more successful country than us, constantly chopping and changing their managers. I can name, they've had Stuart Taylor, Peter Taylor, Gareth Southgate, AJ Boothroyd. That's 4 different managers I've named off they've had in the last 10 years. That just tells you the difference, and look where they are compared to us. So there's bigger problems there. And as you say, like this probably is the weakest crop of players certainly I can ever remember us having, probably in a long, long time. Because even pre-Jack Charlton days, tournaments were harder to qualify back then. We had we probably didn't get the recognition, but we had top players like Steve Highway, Mark Lawrence, and Frank Stapleton, these type of players playing for Liverpool, Manchester United, Liam Brady, John Giles, the list goes on, Don Givens. So this for me, I think probably is also the weakest crop of players we ever had. I think that has to be factored into consideration as well. And as you say, like he's taken over a team in transition. I think he had that spell of the under 21s where it worked out really well. I think it's unfortunate as well, just the way things turned out, because he only had 3 games left to see out in that campaign of under 21s, and they were in such a strong place, and the players were so happy with him. I think it's almost kind of nearly, I know it's easy to say now in hindsight, but maybe Stephen should have been left to see out the rest of that campaign. He probably would have, nothing against Jim Crawford, but he probably would have got them to that tournament. He would have got experience, and players would have got experience of what it was like to be in a major tournament. That would have stood to him. But you can see that he buys in and he trusts them players from working with it. And bit by bit, he wants to shoehorn them in. But he's probably realised from this break that a lot of them are still young lads that haven't maybe got as much first team football as we would have liked. Think of the likes of Adam Ida, Jason Malumbi, players who've had just setbacks for one reason or another so far. And just the demand of playing international football and the quick turnaround every 3 or 4 days is probably just a little bit too soon for them. So you have to try and factor that small bit into, as you mentioned, different style of play as well, a new style of play we've never really kind of seen in this country. It's different from all the traditions that we've kind of had, but you still have to say overall it's been very, very disappointing. I never thought after 11 games we'd still be talking winless. I didn't expect us to maybe win our Nations League campaign, but I thought we'd at least maybe pick up 7 or 8 points. We picked up 3. I definitely thought we'd at least have 3 points. I never felt we were going to win in Belgrade, but I definitely felt we were going to win against Luxembourg. That was very disappointing. I think there's no defending that result. It was tough. It was, for me, it was definitely the hardest game watching Ireland. It was harder than Cyprus 5-2.
Yeah.
So it has been disappointing, but you just have to keep fingers crossed that it is going to work out. That there was signs in that friendly game against. There were definitely signs in Belgrade. It was a good performance all around, and there were signs in the first half against Qatar. And I know people can say, Qatar, they're not great. They're the champions of Asia. Like we see at World Cups, Japan, South Korea, Australia now also compete in Asia. How very, very good they are at World Cups. So it's not exactly an easy continent to win. So you just have to hope that bit by bit, the summer camp might maybe gel the players. For once, he'll actually get plenty of time to work with the players. Not everyone's strolling in on a Monday or a Sunday after playing club football 2 days, and then you have to get on a flight to Belgrade or to Sofia or Bratislava to play on a Thursday. Proper time. And hopefully, I know the fixture list isn't kindest in September, but fingers crossed we can finally get a couple of points on the board.
Yeah, I often find at international level, they just, it's a tough gig really, isn't it? Because they just don't get enough time to really work with the players properly, only at key times. I also think he's been very unlucky as well. I mean, he lost some key players as well to COVID and stuff like that at key times in previous matches. But when I looked at the Serbia game, I was encouraged, even though we lost, I was encouraged by what I saw, like we were trying to play a style of play. It wasn't just this route one hill from the ball type of stuff that, we've been renowned for over years and years. So yeah, I was really encouraged with the Serbia display, but then when it came to the Luxembourg game, those players that I was encouraged about just didn't show up on the day, just were left wanting really, you know what I mean, in terms of the performance against Luxembourg. And then against Qatar, I say to people these days, no matter who you're playing these days, there's no easy games anymore. Those days are gone. And especially where we find ourselves as an international team, where, as you said, we don't have these, big players now from Liverpool and United and the Dennis Irwins and Ray Houghtons of this world. So for us, there is no easy international games, but certainly you would think we should be able to, beat a team like Luxembourg in the Aviva, I suppose not having fans either as well is a big thing. I know all the teams kind of don't have fans at the moment, but I know those nights, those special nights in the Aviva or the old Lansdowne, really, you know, they were special nights with the Irish fans, and they really were the 12th man for those teams at times, you know. So, yeah, I just think there's a lot of unluckiness around him at the moment as well. You know what I mean? He can't seem to catch a break. So that's kind of my feeling on it at the moment with Stephen, you know. You touched on the squad there. You know, Travers played in goal in the Serbia game. And he kind of started out okay. And then, you know, a little bit shaky, made a couple of mistakes. But, you know, goals like the first goal, you know, they were very unlucky, you know. I mean, Clark just missed a header to clear it, really, and then O'Shea got caught out, you know what I mean? Very, very unlucky, and the Serbian player took the goal. The second one, the lob, was one that if you were watching the game, you could nearly see it coming nearly a minute before. As soon as he picked up the ball and went out to the right, and Travers so far off his line, it was just a model for a lob, really. But again, like, it was a world-class finish when you think about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was saying it when we done reaction to ourselves, and I think I was saying it to your friend
Morris.
Yeah. Name forbid me there for a second. Morris as well. It's one of them. Obviously, you'd be disappointed, and you're kind of thinking like, what was he doing so far off the line? But you also have to take into consideration how far Mitrovic was out, and like to have the pair of Leroy G to take that on, because I know he's at a bit of an angle, but most players would have like, right, I've just to keep it to be, I'll run this in, I'll narrow the angle, straighten the hour for myself, and I'll slot it home. But just to take the ambition, because 9 times out of 10 that goes over, or Travers gets a hand to it, or catches it, backtracking, like gets the hand to it out for a corner. But just quality finish. But it was one of them, because when I watched the game back the second time, obviously I knew what was coming, so my eyes were kind of drawn towards Travers. I think a lot of it was he thought that the pass through from Tadic had more on it, and he thought he could rush out and clear it and put out for a corner or for a throw in. Sorry, but obviously it was just a wonderful pass. Like the weight on it was just so perfect from Tadic that it just reached Mitrovic at the perfect time. And then obviously Travers realized, crap, this ball has less pace on it, slowing down, and he got caught out. But again, I know it's don't want to go into a bit of hindsight, but I suppose the performance against Luxembourg, one of the only positives to take away was Bazzuno's performance. I would have went from before that game. I've seen Travers make a couple of mistakes with Bournemouth. I think of that Watford game last season live in Sky on a Sunday, the first game of the season this year for them against Blackburn. And just, I know he had that man of the match display against Spurs, but them things kind of stand out and stick out for you. And I've heard he's made a couple of mistakes in them in pre-season games before. And that kind of just stood in my mind. I was kind of afraid that is there going to be another mistake? And unfortunately it was. Now, obviously, anytime any player takes the field for Ireland, and likewise the manager, he wants it to work out. It was just so unfortunate. It was just disappointing. But like, as you were kind of saying there as well, up until that point, or up until the Luxembourg game, you would have come away and thinking like, right, two most important games so far in the Stephen Kenny era, Slovakia away and Serbia away. While we didn't get the desired results we want, the performances are what like we wanted, and why the reason why we got Stephen Kenny. Just the Luxembourg game, like it's often the case, like maybe when I wouldn't say a big dog because we're not that anymore, but when a bigger nation comes up against the minnows, more often not to get caught out because maybe complacencies or took them for granted. That just wasn't the case to us. It was just a case of, I thought there was going to be a good bit of confidence going into because we got the one kill of the back goals off us, the good performance, but just maybe it was to the case of fatigue, like because we don't have that many players playing regularly at the moment, like, and just maybe that kind of caught up with us. Luxembourg have been bit by bit creeping up as well. And I also think as well, I know Luxembourg had the friendly against Qatar, but really from when they were gathered in camp on that Monday, they would have properly zoned and focused in the Ireland game. So they actually had properly a week. Like the Qatar game was just a sake of filling out a game to keep FIFA happy. So even maybe small little things like that, but just the lack of kind of confidence, and you feel like that chance that Collins missed. It was a very, very good move, a great move again. Another sign of what can happen with Stephen Kenny. That goes into the back of net. You're talking about one of the best team goals Ireland have ever scored. The way it comes off the shoulders. Okay, I'm not saying we go out and we batter them, but we probably go on to win that game maybe by another goal or maybe 3-1 or something else like that. And there's different kind of mood and different complexion. It's just funny how things work out like that. And yeah, I agree. The days of like you still have the likes of maybe your Andorras and your San Marinos and your Faroe Islands. They might still be and Gibraltar. They might still be a rollover. But the days now, the likes of the Kazakhstans and the Luxembourgs, and it's not too often you get soft games anymore. Like only have to look at North Macedonia beating Germany, Malta drawing with Slovakia, who then go on to beat Russia a couple of days later. So international football, like it's not as given anymore. A lot of these smaller countries now, as we've seen with Luxembourg, they're not part-time players anymore. They're professional players. They mightn't be playing with the best of standard teams. And with the case of Luxembourg, they mightn't be playing the most regular football. I think they only had 3 or 4 players that played 10 plus games for their clubs this season, but they're still at good clubs. They're still in good set up facilities. They're training like professionals every day. Yeah. And then when they come together, like it's only going to bring them on as a country. And we've seen that, unfortunately, come against us 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I suppose I think the one thing about fans not being there is you're able to hear so much on the pitch. And I was so impressed with the young goalkeeper in the Luxembourg game. Yeah. I just, when you hear him, like he's coaching his back four and like, you know, he's kind of telling Seamus Coleman nearly where he wants him, and you're going, this is absolutely fantastic. You know what I mean? This young kid in nets, you know, living the dream, getting his cap for Ireland. You know what I mean? He's going out there telling a veteran like Seamus Coleman, this is where I want you. You know what I mean? And that's it's kind of really what you want, isn't it? Really, you want a guy to go out there, not in a disrespectful way, but you want him to manage. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a referee, and he said he refereed a couple of matches that Bazunu played in, and he said he's like that in every game he plays in. He's like a natural leader where he will be structuring his defense and constantly on their back all the time, which is fabulous for such a young kid. You know what I mean? I was so impressed with him, like, you know.
I think it's one of those with a goalkeeper because, like, he's, you know, that last line of defense. I think regardless of what kind of age he is, you always want kind of command because he can see the whole game happen in front of him. He's always facing the ball and always facing the game. So I think regardless of kind of what age you're at, you always want kind of command and leadership come away. I'd be kind of more worried if, like, if people came away from that game, the senior players are coming around saying, like, geez, I didn't hear much from Gavin tonight. He didn't kind of shout instructions like, I know he's young, I know he's nervous, but he's a goalkeeper. He has to carry that shoulder and carry that weight of expectation. And he handled it absolutely superbly. But I suppose he's not short and shine and carrying on expectation. He's playing with a team in Rochester at the moment who are bottom of League One and look destined to head down to League Two. So, like, he's been used to kind of like probably having to call the finger out and tell people and stuff like that. And it's fantastic and it's really, really encouraging to see. It's probably one of the most encouraging things coming forward is we don't have a lack of goalkeepers because between him and let's not rule out Mark Travers either because he's still a young lad. Goalkeepers a long longevity. He can definitely prove all of us wrong again, fingers crossed. And obviously we've got Queeveen Kelleher at Liverpool. We've yet to see an Irish shirt, but he's handled the expectation of playing for Liverpool in a big Champions League game against Ajax with qualification on the line. He's played in 2 Premier League matches, kept a clean sheet in one of them against Wolves. So it is good to see. And Darren Randolph is not exactly just finished yet either, like so.
Yeah. Who's the younger players in the squad at the moment that kind of stick out to you in terms of, you know, defense, midfield, and forward? Who are the guys that you keep an eye on that you think can step up to that next level and sort of, you know, grow in time, if you like, into the role?
I wouldn't exactly quite call him a younger player. He's still the right side of 25 and such, but he was kind of new to the international scene. But I thought Josh Cullen can kind of come away from the last kind of couple of games with his head held high. He had a good performance in Belgrade. And I thought that first half of the Luxembourg game, he played a couple of really nice passes. Played one great ball into Alan Browne. Just unfortunately, Alan couldn't get the ball out of his feet and ended up going out over the goal line, so getting a shot away. But he done really well. He's shown glimpses, I think, before in the past, obviously coming up through West Ham. He had a very good season in the Championship with Charlton last year, despite their relegation. And he's gone to Anderlecht this season. And under Vincent Kompany, he's kind of seemed to take his game to another level there, just from kind of reports to kind of seen. But you're always a little bit wary of kind of like, why is the standard of the Belgian Pro League? I know we see the likes of Standard Liège, Club Bruges. We're seeing Antwerp as well in the Europa League this year and stuff like that. But you're always a little bit kind of skeptical. I suppose we kind of knew after these 2 games whether he'd be up to it, and he definitely does. And like I say, he's still only, I think he's approaching his 25th birthday later this month. He definitely looks like he could be a good player for the future. Players that obviously the other player that has to definitely stand comes to mind is Daryl Shea at the back. He's having a good season with West Brom in the Premier League. It's just unfortunate that he had to go off injured the other day against Chelsea and he missed out on that remarkable victory for West Brom in that game. But I thought he was excellent against Serbia. Just unfortunate, as maybe you touched on, got kind of caught the wrong side and caught a little bit napping for their first goal. But I think Clark has to be winning that header in the first place. But again, yeah, like he's trying to show really, really good leadership the last couple of days for such a young lad that's come in. He's obviously got the experience of playing in the Premier League. He's one of them. even at West Brom, which it does look like are going to go down, I still don't think a season in Championship for his development isn't going to do any harm. Like, he only actually broke into the West Brom team at Christmas last year, so he doesn't even have a full season of Championship football under his belt. So that wouldn't be the worst for his development. Then obviously the players, the two Jasons, Malumbi and Knight, they both look great prospects in the Nations League. Didn't quite happen for him this game. Jason Knight did okay against Luxembourg, but he's only a young lad breaking the team. We shouldn't be expecting him to be kind of like grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck and carrying us over the line. And Malumbi, unfortunately, even since Alex Neil's got sacked at Preston, I thought with a new manager he might get a look in there, but he's so far in their 2 games since the return from the international break is still struggling for game time. It's a head scratcher because he was so good at Millwall last season. Then you're looking at the Nations League and you're thinking, surely to God now he has to be knocking on the door of Graham Potter and getting into that Brighton side. Still couldn't. Thought the move back to the Championship again, he'll prove a point. But I think he's just unfortunate. Preston went on such a bad run of form. Maybe Alex Neil just kind of panicked and said, I'll go with the stride and trust it. But again, like, even the new manager so far hasn't taken a shine from him. So it is a little bit worrying. But again, he is a young player. And hopefully, fingers crossed, that like his career will still continue to live up to the hype that he's shown in the past.
Yeah, you can see with Malumbi, he has a bit about him, doesn't he? You can
Bit
see
of bite, yeah.
Yeah, when he's on the pitch, like he's up for it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Reminds me of James McLean, really. Remember going back a few years?
Yeah, I think even for his role,
it,
he reminds you of kind of a Roy Keane, or well, maybe not quite ability-wise, but that kind of type player, or Mark Hintz or Lee Carsey, that kind of player.
Yeah, comes on and really embraces the battle, you know, that kind of way. Really, really wants it. I looked at that West Brom game there the other day. Callum Robinson. I mean, oh my God. I was just thinking, where was that Callum Robinson last week? I mean, he what some goals, like, just incredible. And I was thinking, God, if we could have just got 1 or 2 of them against Luxembourg, you know what I mean? And I mean, he played, I think, especially against Serbia. I think he had, he was threatening all the time.
Yeah.
But again, just little moments where little things he tried just didn't come off, and you know, he was just unlucky, really. You know, what's your making on Callum?
It's a shame Chelsea aren't an international team.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
I seen a good meme as well on Facebook last night. If only Porto had Callum Robinson, they would have got something from last night's game. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I suppose everyone's kind of looking at, like, similar to yourself, kind of like, well, where is this Callum Robinson? Like, look what he's after doing for West Brom. But I'm sure West Brom fans are probably thinking to themselves, like, where is this Callum Robinson every time except for where we play Chelsea, because he only seems to score against them. It's not like he's regularly doing it for the baggies either. But it's an interesting one, like, because I was watching that game as well, and he took his 2 goals. The first goal was unbelievable. I think Ken Early had a good joke on second captain's CR7, and even Messi wouldn't have scored that one, but he took it absolutely beautifully. And then the second one was just a touch of class, composure. Yeah. It's an easy one to take because it's in injury time. They're 4-2 up. If he doesn't score and makes a show of himself, no one's really going to remember or care, that kind of way. But as you touched on, like, but he never really kind of got himself in them positions to Ireland. Now, that's obviously because he was playing on the left-hand side. But as you say, like, he still looked kind of threatening. There was one stage in the Serbia game, I think, was it Stevens put a good cross in, and he was just coming on to meet it, but credits to the Serbian defender. He came across and read it well. Yeah, that kind of way. It's just unfortunate, but like, he was the man to put the brilliant cross in for Collins' goal. Maybe it was just like happens, maybe Stevens put that cross in and he happened to be in Collins' position, ball coming in the back of it. It's just unfortunate. But I think Callum is one of them players. We've seen it overall in general, you have to say, with West Brom this season. He's kind of struggled. He's not really kind of adapted that well to Premier League. Same thing happened to him with Sheffield United last year. But as we've seen with West Brom, he was a key part of them going up last season. The reason why he got his move to Sheffield United in the first place was because of excellent Championship performance with Preston. He's one of them star players. I think he's one of them players. No, it's still, don't get me wrong, it's still a good level, and I still think he has a future for Ireland. But I think the Championship probably is his level going forward.
Yeah. Let's have a chat about Shane Duffy. Certainly the move from Brighton to Celtic has been interesting, to say the least. Obviously the dip in form with Celtic anyway has been, the fall from grace has been really shocking, in fairness. What you're making on the move and Shane and stuff like that? He's normally a stalwart for us there at the back, you know.
It's a weird one because given the way that's turned out, this is probably going to even sound stranger. But I thought at the time it was a kind of a disappointing move. I actually thought he could have kind of got better. I know he never really got much for looking with Graham Potter last season. I think because of the style of football, the new style he's trying to bring in with Brighton, he maybe just didn't quite suit his style. But the previous season before that, he was Brighton's player of the season in the 18-19 season under Chris Hughton. And Chris really kind of took a liking and took a shine into him. He was a key part then getting up to the Premier League. And I kind of still felt, I remember saying to a couple of mates, because I remember West Ham, there was rumours that they were sniffing around. How true they were, I don't know. But you still kind of felt he was good enough to be in the Premier League and stuff like that. And I kind of felt like, oh, he's dropping down to good. I know like he's a Celtic fan, and I think Celtic were still in the Champions League qualifiers at the time, and there was the attraction of European football. But you're still kind of thinking like he can do better than that. But it's very, very disappointing. But as you say, like in general, I think it's, I know why his performances have been poor with Celtic, and he's coming for a lot of criticism. But you can't just kind of single him out. Celtic in general this season have been an absolute shambles. I haven't watched much of the Scottish football, but I watched them in the Europa League at times this year, like flipping. AC Milan played them around the park, and then I think they went to Lille the following week and they were 2-0 up, and they couldn't show the courage to see out that game and end up drawing that game. I think that just wrote off their European campaign after that. Like Sparta Prague again just destroyed them at Parkhead. And as you say, like to fall off the way they have, and almost just to literally hand Rangers a title without even putting up a genuine fight has been very, very disappointing this season. But it has been very, very disappointing from his point of view. It's hard to know kind of like where he kind of goes next. I wouldn't be surprised, given the connection that he has with Chris Hughton, that he ends up back at Nottingham, that he ends up with Nottingham Forest next season. I could probably see Brighton would probably look to sell him. Wouldn't be a bad move for him, because I think like after this, like it's clear Celtic won't be any interest, and he's a big earner there as well. Won't have any interest in keeping him on. Can see that he's done enough to convince Graham Potter I can turn your opinion over. Probably hasn't done enough to convince other Premier League clubs. So I think a championship move wouldn't be too bad for him. As from an Ireland point of view, again, like he's never really kind of put a foot wrong from Ireland. Like even the playoff game against Slovakia, I thought he was excellent. I know he wasn't great in the November internationals, but none of them games were of major significance. I know the Nations League technically it's a competitive game, but they're glorified friendlies in my eyes. So he's never really kind of let us down. I thought he actually had a good game against Qatar. He's just gone 29, so he's probably in that category, should be the peak of his career. He's probably still has another maybe 3 or 4 years at the international level, you think, left him. So I wouldn't rule him out from an Ireland point of view. If, say, for instance, whether it's Nottingham Forest or wherever it is, he gets that championship move and does really well there, he could quite force his way back into that Ireland squad yet. Or that team, I should say, because he's still in the squad.
Yeah, he seems to be one of those lads that needs game time, doesn't he? He needs to be playing really at whatever level he finds himself at, but he needs to be playing. Is key to him, you know. He's one of those lads. I think he plays. He's a confidence type player, if you like. So he needs to be playing. But as you said, he rarely lets us down. I mean, he's always on the pitch. He's always 100%. Another guy who embraces the battle, if you like. You know, he loves getting stuck in. You know, let's have a quick chat about Troy Parrott. Is a kind of an interesting conundrum, really, isn't it? There was so much spoken about this lad, and so much. You know, what way would you put it? People were saying something special at times. You know, he was at Spurs, couldn't seem to kind of really get a look in at Spurs. Was sent out on loan, I think, was it to where did he go? He went
Millwall.
to Millwall. Went to Millwall, and then I think did Millwall loan him out somewhere as well, or
he went back from Millwall to Spurs in January, and Spurs have loaned him out to Ipswich.
Yeah. What's your thinking on Troy?
I think the jury is still very much open. I think people forget. I think people get carried away, and it's mad, like, because we've been talking about him for so long, and he seems like he's around forever, even though he's still 19. He's still a kid. He's still a teenager. And I think people have to kind of be patient and give him time. I think people got too carried away with his underage record with Ireland and his underage record with Spurs. He was scoring the Champions League for the Spurs under 17s or under 19s, whatever age group it was, against the likes of Inter Milan and Barcelona. And people getting carried away and thinking, oh, like, you know, he should be in the senior squad and stuff like that. Like, people need to kind of just calm down and I think kind of relax and stuff like that. And it's very unhealthy. I think this is no problem. No, this is no fault of Troy, but I think the fact that we haven't had a goal scorer since Robbie Keane, I think we're just desperate, like, for one. And everyone kind of thought this fella was going to be the answer, and he still very much could be. Like, I still think, even though it didn't work out for him at Millwall, but to go there and to play regular first team football at 18 years of age at a standard like the Championship, it's still only going to benefit from. Like, I can't name people on my two hands of that age profile in recent years that are Irish that have played at that high level regularly. Like, and even going down to Ipswich Town as well. He got his goal a couple of weeks ago. Ipswich are in a strange position. They get one good result and then they end up shooting themselves out in the foot the following game. Like I forget who they bet on Good Friday, but then they draw to Rochdale or bottom of the table then on Monday. Like they're still outside the playoffs. They're a sleeping giant very much in English football. So it is kind of a hard one. Like, but I do see from a lot of reports and stuff like that, like Ipswich fans are happy with his performance, are happy with his attitude and his work rate and stuff like that. That's kind of good to see. It's just hopefully fingers crossed the goals will come. But I think people just need to kind of relax and just realize this lad is still only 19. He's still only finding his feet. Yeah, he mightn't work out for him, mightn't take out from us at Spurs, but like Spurs are one of the top teams in England. They're battling for the Champions League. They were in the final of that competition a couple of years ago. They were neck and neck for league titles and stuff like that. Like, so who's to say he could still break into them, but who's to say, like, even if it doesn't work out from Spurs, he still won't go maybe to a lower Premier League club and do the business for them, like.
Yeah, I mean, Jose will be a hard taskmaster anyway.
Yeah, he's never been a man to give youth much of a chance anyway. Like.
Yeah, absolutely. Who else do you see? I mean, do you see anyone, like, I mean, in some of your coverage, say, around the League of Ireland? We know Jack had broken through, playing phenomenal for Rovers and then moving on to Applewell and then being so unlucky with the injury and stuff like that. Do you see any other players around our own league at the moment that could potentially break through like Jack or shown any sort of promise?
There's one player, maybe it might be clashing me a bit biased in saying this, that stood out to me so far. And I seen it live in person the other day, and just from watching him go by, I'm a St. Pat's fan, and it's a midfielder there, Jamie Lennon. He's been involved in the 21s now for quite a while. Played that too-long tournament with Stephen Kenny. Actually scored in the last qualifying campaign away to Liechtenstein, or was it Luxembourg even, actually, I think last November. He's very impressed me. I was very impressed with him last Friday night against Bowes and in the previous couple of games as well for Pats against Shamrock Rovers and Drogheda as well. He looks a really kind of good player and good prospect. One player as well that I was very impressed with, left back defender at Bohemians and has now gone on to Dundalk and obviously played in their European campaign. Daryl Shea, he as well looks another really good top prospect as well. I think he's only 22, 23 years of age. Been very, very solid for Ireland under 21. He's established himself in that team. I think he's now overaged, though, unfortunately, going forward as well. But just the big thing kind of is, like, I know we've seen Jack get into the squad, get a couple of caps. Graham Burke as well scored in that friendly against USA. Even last November was still a League of Ireland player at the time, Aaron McAniff. Still very, very difficult, for these players to kind of break in. Like, I probably realistically speaking, talking about the likes of, Jamie Lennon and Daryl Shea, like, realistically speaking, maybe only getting a handful of caps or an odd call up here or there. But they are types of players I think that can go on to have very, very good careers possibly in England. We've seen Luke McNally, the centre back at St. Pat's, he's gone to Oxford as well. Danny Grant, who was, the young player of the year, was probably, after Jack, the most exciting player to watch in the league last year. He's gone to Huddersfield. Injuries so far has kind of curtailed his involvement. Like, but no, there is kind of definitely a couple of good prospects out there as well. I probably left out a couple of names there, but they're just the immediate ones, I suppose, that would spring to mind for me so far.
Yeah, it's such a conundrum for the manager, isn't it? I mean, do you actually pick players that may be over across the water in bigger clubs or bigger leagues, if you like, but not necessarily getting game time that you'd want? Or do you try and find other players who are actually playing on a regular basis to come into the squad, must be such a conundrum for Stephen to try and figure out what's the balance and how do I find that balance. Tell us this, a lot of stuff going on social media at the moment in terms of, we see all the racism stuff going on at the moment and things like that. I mean, have you got a view on that at the moment? Players continually now seems to be, after bad performances, getting attacked. And the racial abuse, the wave of it is unbelievable. Any thoughts on that at the moment?
I just think it's absolutely filthy and absolutely disgusting. I know I'm very, very fortunate. I've come up from a background and a time where things are kind of different, but I just can't understand how people are viewed and looked at just because they're of their skin color and their ethnic and their background. It's just disgusting and absolutely appalling. Just even, it really, really struck a chord with me the other day when I seen the screenshots of Callan Robbins' club. The emojis, the things that someone put up, it was, it's just so, I just don't get it. Like, at the end of the day, we're all human. We're all the same. Like, I just can't get how, like, people think it's okay just because they're black, like, and because, like, the stereotype is, because if you're black you're different. You're not. We're all, like, it doesn't make a difference if you're black or you're white. We're all the same. Like, I think it's got to a stage now, it's the same as well as with you as well. it doesn't matter like anymore. Like especially now, I just know, like for instance, I remember seeing a couple of weeks ago that Man United Arsenal game when Rashford missed them simple chances. You just know straight away because Rashford's black, that's it. He's just going to get racially abused. Whereas if he was white, like it wouldn't pass him. You just know it's an easy stick. Like you know, easily know straight away because of how bad things are gone, and because all games are now watched on TV and there's no one at the matches. Social media is in overdrive. That anytime now a black player does something, it's just because they're black. It's just an easy stick to beat them with. Like it's just, I just don't get it. Like I'm very much educated from the kind of point of view. I don't look at anyone any differently from their background or from their skin color or anything else like that. It's just it's not, if the problem is it's not a football problem, it's a society problem. And because football overlaps very much with society, and you know, football traditionally is your working class background, it's always going to feed its way in, unfortunately. Everyone's talking about like, you know, what do we have to do and tackle this in football? I'm kind of like, until like social media accounts actually block this and stop this from happening. Like Twitter are able to take Donald Trump off, they're able to block him. Why, like, can you not, like, you clearly have someone that reviews content before they go up? Like, this should be stopped. Like, same with Instagram as well. Like, content should be reviewed as well. Unless you can verify and prove you're a real profile, you shouldn't be on it. Like, I just think it's absolutely disgusting. And to think that people are doing this and they're getting a thrill and getting a laugh out, like, just you have to ask serious questions of these people's mentality. Like maybe fair enough, they have problems in their own life, and this is kind of their escape. And fair enough, maybe people should be reaching out to them. But like, if they're getting pleasure out of this, like, I find it funny and everything else like that, serious questions have to be asked of them.
Yeah, I just can't imagine what it would have been like the other day to be Callum Robinson. He's
Yeah,
coming off the pitch. He's like man of the match performance after scoring 2 goals, after hammering Chelsea, and you come off. And this is the like, instead of all the applaudits and the congratulations, all that good stuff gets washed away by these stupid idiots who post this
yeah.
absolute junk, who are sitting at home probably lonely with nothing going on in their lives, but nothing more to do but to ruin a person's, weekend or life or whatever it is. It's deplorable, really. You know what I
It
mean? And
just
it's
annoys
just,
me because like, if say maybe just say for argument's sake from an Irish point of view, obviously because we take more interest because it was Callum. But just say if that was Daryl Shea that done that and got to 2 goals, no one would have attacked him because he's white, because he's seen as the normal skin color background. Like I'm just like, them days are done. Them days are gone. Like I know, like fair enough, it's can be a generation thing and stuff like that and stuff like that. But like, we're now more educated. It's 2021 now at this stage. Like we're more open and everything else like that. And I think like Ireland has come on such a long way. Like we've so many different backgrounds in this country, which is absolutely fantastic to kind of see, and to see the different kind of cultures. And for like someone like me that was grown up kind of in a rural farming background, you know, Catholic background in Ireland, now to kind of like to expose and kind of see people come from different backgrounds, and like to hear about their kind of cultures and kind of to see their cultures and maybe even participate in them. It's fantastic to see because it broadens yourself and kind of it just makes you more aware and stuff like that. And then to see kind of people like just still have hanging on to this, like, oh, but this is different from what I kind of think. It's just like it's so outdated, kind of like. And it is good now to see that, like, you know, Callum Robinson is taking screenshots, Darren Randolph is taking screenshots. You know, I know it's a different type of abuse, but James McLean as well. They're standing up for this now. But I think like definitely social media accounts, like you have things that monitor tweets to prove and content and posts to see if they're suitable pull up. How this is allowed to be, because like them emojis put up the other day, like with the emoji of poo shit and monkeys for Callum Robinson. Honestly, I just remember like watching that, my body just froze and it got like felt like getting sick. It's just I just can't understand it. It just really does annoy me.
yeah, it's so, especially for us being Irish as well, it's so foreign to us as well, because we've always been that open darn country.
Yeah,
Come on in, you're welcome. Embrace the culture. Tell us about yours. It's all good. You know what I mean? And to see these people, it's weird. And you just, at times, you'd wonder, is it a generational thing, or is it just, just idiots out there just with a crutch to bear, really? You know what I mean? And I'm not even too sure if it would be sort of, older people, if you like, lapsing over a generation that just don't get it, or just think that this kind of carry on is all right. Just fools, like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Idiots, like. And it's surprising in terms of social media that, as you said, they can do anything they want to Donald Trump and throw him off Twitter if it suits them and stuff like that. Why can't they move in and zone in on these people and these
yeah,
kind of posts and sort it out? Because if they don't, this is the kind of thing that can fester like a wound and get a whole lot worse before it gets a whole lot better. And it's just it's very, very frustrating to see it, and it's and especially at a time as well where, you know, all the organizations and all the clubs worldwide have such a push on this at the moment to sort it out and kick it out and sort it out in their own clubs if any of it is going on and all. You know what I mean? It's anyone out there at the moment who thinks it's in any way acceptable in any sort of format in your brain, wake up and quit it. Give it up. It's long gone at this stage. But yeah, just so frustrating. Yeah, so we'll park it there and see. And I mean, over time, I mean, these things, they have to sort themselves out. It's there's no tolerance for this anymore now at this stage. Um, in terms going back to Irish Football Fan TV, anything special coming up at the moment, or any interesting interviews, or anything planned over the next few weeks?
Yeah, we had a good podcast that just came out actually today, this morning. Myself and Gary Spain. So we did an interview with Andy Bell from the Spirit 2016, which is kind of the equivalent of a podcast for Northern Ireland. Just kind of, I suppose, we talked about the topic and debate: will we ever see United Ireland football team? I suppose I think one of the Fianna Fáil councillors or TDs or senators or something like that, and Monaghan, I forget his name, Gallagher, I think, brought it up, like, and just kind of got a bit of media traction from that. So I kind of felt while it was in the spotlight to mention, obviously there is talks and attractions as well about an All-Ireland League, which I think would be a good goal. I think it'd be very, very good to kind of, for both leagues, at least, to better sponsorship, better TV deals, money, more sustainability for clubs. And I think it would overall improve clubs, improve standards, and help improve both national teams. So that was a good one that went out today. As I touched on there, yeah, it was Thursday evening, so we're coming up to yet another weekend. We'll have plenty of coverage across our social channels of updating matches, as I touched on. I ain't going to be at Longford and Drogheda on Saturday evening, Bishopsgate. We're going to have a lad, Rossa, he's going to be at Richmond Park for Derry versus Pats tomorrow. Paul is going to be covering Shelburne and Wexford in the first division. I think Paul Tierney is going to be covering the Cavan Teely game. I can't remember the top of my head who they're playing. I think it's Galway. Gary Spain is going to be down covering, Treaty United and Cove. So we've plenty of content like that. That's going to be going across with post-match reaction across our socials all weekend. We'll have our regular League of Ireland show as well coming up throughout the course of the week, and I'm pretty sure as well we'll brainstorm a couple of good topics and ideas to cover as well, like that kind of just one-off one like we had about the All-Ireland team and nation, or team and league coming up as well in the next few weeks.
Yeah, coverage is absolutely phenomenal, I have to say. In terms of the socials and websites and all that, let the listeners and viewers know, where can they find you.
I hope I do this justice. I might have to get my phone up, because I can't remember the handles directly off the top of my head. But we're on them all. We're on social media, or on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Hold on a second, I just get my phone here, and just to get the right handles, because I don't want to get this wrong. So yeah, we're on Instagram at Irish Football Fan TV, and we're on Twitter at Irish Fan TV, and like I said, you'll find us in Facebook. That's an easy one. If you just type the name into the search bar, Irish Football Fan TV, will pop up there as well. So, and we're on TikTok as well, but I'm not personally on TikTok myself, so I can't talk too much about that one.
TikTok is good fun. You should get on TikTok.
But we're in fairness now, I do get a good. We've got good traction on that. We do put up some good videos, but the fact that I think I don't have a personal account, I don't kind of maybe push that one quite as much.
And you've also got the website, the .com site.
The website as well there, where you'll find. You'll even find some of our merch as well there. So don't be afraid to get on there and get yourself a couple of nice t-shirts.
Yeah, always, if you're listening or you're viewing, always head over, support Irish podcasting as well, and obviously Irish homegrown football and everything, always. But Gerard, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming on and taking the time and giving us an insight into Irish Football Fan TV. And keep up the great work, all you guys. I mean, the coverage is outstanding, and the spread of the coverage is outstanding, and it's a real great insight. I'd imagine if you're a football fan over in America or somewhere like that, you guys are absolutely crucial to those guys and keeping on top of what's going on the Irish football scene.
Yeah, just talking to my cousin actually today. He's living over in Vietnam, and he's just saying the coverage over there is just a godsend for him. It's just keeping him so updated, and he just loves following it and keeping on top of Irish football. So it is fantastic from that point of view for the people living outside of this island.
Yeah, it's amazing when we do these podcasts that you don't realize the impact you're having on people, especially during these COVID times.
Yeah.
Because this is the content that people have. This is what they wait for each day and stuff like that, you know. So again, thanks a million for coming on. As always, head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button, Dynamo Podcast Network. Also head over to Irish Football Fan TV. Support them on all their socials and on their website there. Drop your subscribes, likes, shares, the whole lot. And we shall chat to you again soon. Gerard, thanks again for coming on.
No worries, Niall. It was a pleasure. Thank you. Enjoyed that.
Cheers, bud.